Travis,
Hello.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
It's 1941, which means it's time for the summit of 1940. It's been a fast year, honestly. It feels like it's been long, but it's been fast. What are your immediate standout thoughts about this past year?
It's been terrifying but weirdly quiet as the war starts to close this year.
Yeah, you've done a lot of things over the years. So, early 1940, that's when we saw France. It was the invasion into France, and I took every single low country in one big historical push. Is that about what you expected from me? And how do you think overall that the war in France went?
To be fair, I wish you went for the leader than historical route, because I would have had time to build up. But I was kind of okay. I mean, I knew I wasn't holding France. That would be quite literally impossible.
Yeah, I remember you in the last summit, you're like, yeah, I see you going to war next turn, maybe the turn after. And I had planned for the turn after, actually. But then the next turn came and the weather just said, invade me now. So I did. and so I did an early invasion. My troops weren't even set up. You know that? I still had, I think, a couple of land units that weren't fully in position, and my air forces were not in position either. So I had to start off a little bit weaker than I otherwise wanted to, but I was very happy with the results, and I think it worked out for me better than if I would have waited beyond that clear weather.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty smart of you to do that. I didn't even think about the weather.
Yeah, weather matters a lot, and, you know, terrain in this game. Rain makes mud, it's hard to move in mud. Snow is always terrible to fight in, and so I especially wanted to make sure everything was as operational as possible. And then the war in France began, and then after France fell, you were trying to figure it out, I remember, whether or not Vichy France would come about, and it did. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, it worries me a little bit, because that means that you're not going to be sending as much troops down south that I know of. So that means they're going to be doing something else, like either maybe a early USSR war, or Sea Lion still soon to come. Who knows?
Well, yeah, I know you've definitely been watching for Sea Lion, but also for an early USSR war, it's actually, if you look at the time, what did Hitler invade in summer? June of 1941, and it's now January of 1941 in the game. So if that happened, it would have to be like really soon.
Yeah.
One thing I remember was you commented on my paratroopers in France. What did you think about seeing those?
Made me worry a little bit, because like, wow, okay, I guess I caught him right in time. But I also don't know exactly how they work in this game, so they might just be vibing there.
Well, here's how paratroopers work. It's a unit. It doesn't have the ability to say, it can't really like move as quickly on land. You get to a location and then you have to set up your planes. So you get to a location, that's one turn. The next turn, you set up your planes to actually jump. And then you can go your operational range of a jump any turn after that. Or if it's like raining, then it gets halved. And then they just fly over. If there's fighters in range, they can try to be intercepted. But they can also get escorts, and then they land where you tell them to land, or if they land on a unit, they'll land next to that, and they may take some losses from falling, and then they could just start fighting immediately after that.
Do they have any supply penalties, at least shortly?
So it works like a normal unit doing an amphibious landing, where the turn they land, they'll have the supply of where they came from, but immediately after that, they'll be down to whatever the supply is around them.
Got you.
So another thing after the invasion ended of France is Italy joined the war. And so Italy joined the war immediately, and that led to a couple interesting things. One interesting thing was your battleship running into one of my subs.
Well, I didn't expect them to be right off the coast of Egypt.
You want to know the best part about that?
It wasn't intentional.
No, so just before that, we had talked about whether or not I have traps laid for you anywhere, and I said I had one on the map, and then
And it was that.
no, actually it wasn't, because the following turn I decided to set up more, and that was one of them. I had just put it there that moment, and you just happened to run into it immediately after I put them there. If you had gone there literally one turn earlier, they wouldn't have been there.
I guess that was just very unlucky timing for me.
Yeah, don't you love subs?
Oh yeah.
Speaking of subs, we've had a little bit of a Battle of the Atlantic starting, sort of. At least there's been a lot of convoy raiding that has started with German submarines in the Atlantic. What are your thoughts about that? I know you've only just recently started sending your destroyers out.
Yeah, you have like a lot of damn subs out here. Like, you shouldn't be attacking like innocent shipping like this, man. That ain't cool.
Look, this is a time-honored tradition from World War I to use submarines. And before that, people were using surface ships. We're just continuing the tradition. That's it.
Think about the children.
Yes, the dear, poor German children whose lives are at risk because of the evil United Kingdom. I will think about them in all of my future decisions.
Skill issue.
Going back to the Mediterranean, the North African front has been very quiet, hasn't it?
Very quiet. Well, yeah.
I don't think that there's been one actual battle or engagement in North Africa. I don't remember if maybe you tried a bombing at one point, but there's been no land fighting. I know that.
Yeah, no land fighting so far, and I don't think there's been even an air battle on your side. I think I initiated one, but that's about it.
Instead, around North Africa, still in the Mediterranean, we had what happened around Malta. Now, that is not historical. Malta never got taken in World War II. What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, it's kind of what I was expecting. I wasn't going to be able to hold it.
Were you expecting me to invade Malta specifically?
Yeah.
What do you think about the method the invasion went? Did you expect it to go quite the way that it did?
Honestly, I didn't know you didn't need a invasion force, but yeah, just bombarding the hell out of those.
It depends. Like, you could need an invasion force, but Malta's like a one hex location, meaning I can't land on top of you. I can use an amphibious transport to attack it, because amphibious transports get an attack. But you see, what I did was I just used entirely air against your anti-air, which that was kind of a bit of a gamble, I suppose.
I actually got what I wanted out of it. It looked like you did take a little bit of damage from that.
Only a little bit. Did you notice kind of how I set that up, though?
Not really. I just saw, like, I think 3 bombers, maybe.
So what I mean is before it, so you would have dealt way more damage with that anti-air, but what happened was I surrounded your ports to stop supply from getting to them. And then I bombarded Malta itself with my battleships to lower the supply to so low that you wouldn't be able to reinforce. You'd have minimal supply, like minimal readiness and minimal morale. And then once I weakened you as much as possible, I started doing some bombings. You did some initial damage to one tactical bomber because you were at your strongest. But after that, you dealt really no more damage because you were so weak at that point.
Yeah.
Additionally, we've had some deals that have had some effects. For example, Greece is independent because, and not being invaded by Italy, because on your side, Yugoslavia will not be couped, meaning they will be joining the Axis. You should be getting that event rather soon. Well, I believe in like half a year, maybe. I think it happens around September-ish. I don't remember exactly.
Not too sure.
Between that and then Germany not taking part of Lithuania, Soviet Union not taking the Baltics, it's a pretty interesting setup for Eastern Europe. Do you have any thoughts about that?
No, I just know that when Barbarossa eventually kicks off, it's going to be a very interesting war.
It will be interesting because the front is much different, and even the sides are a little bit different. Additionally, we have that deal with the Italian destroyer making its way home. Any thoughts about that one?
I mean, it was a fair deal. Both of our sailors get to live another day.
It was an interesting deal. I really didn't know if I wanted to do it, but I just decided to like get the destroyer back. Keeping you out of the Mediterranean for a period of time, honestly, that was really just to ensure that I could do my invasion of Malta. So that wasn't really worth a whole lot to me, because the reason that those, like, you ran into my submarine, the reason that's there is because I wanted you to run into it if you were going to try to stop me from taking Malta to begin with. That's the whole reason I set that trap. So it became like useless almost immediately because we made the deal the next turn, but also you still ran the battleship into it, which was kind of funny.
Yeah, I was just checking the coastline. I didn't know you were there.
Yeah, I remember we talked about it, like, why don't you come down here and get away from the British Isles? And I wasn't sure if you'd actually do it or not, but I thought, well, there's a chance he will. So maybe start doing some submarine patrols in places where I know British units might spawn. Because if I remember correctly, I remember from the Allied playthrough, like, not only that battleship, but I think you get like a carrier by Egypt as well, I'm pretty sure, at the very beginning. And we've seen that carrier now by East Africa. Looking at East Africa, that's definitely been going a little interestingly as well. Not quite like it's gone in any of my playthroughs. What are your thoughts on East Africa?
It's going about how I expected. Supply is always, well, shit here.
Funny enough, East Africa is one of the places where I'm most surprised this isn't going anything like I expected it. Especially with kind of how I prepared to handle it. This one's really surprised me, but I can't say why yet.
Gotcha. I guess we'll have to wait till next summit for that one.
Yeah. Next summit we could almost certainly talk about it, I'm willing to bet. If we remember to.
Yeah, we'll see.
So moving over to Asia, we have the China-Japanese front. Now, this has been your focus this year. This is like, you've been really, really focused on trying to make something happen on this front. We've both set our own goals and gone about reaching them in a different way. Had a lot of conversations about this front. It's funny, it's the craziest front, but it's like the only front we've made like no deals on. Except, I remember you did want a Christmas truce, and you just played back this turn, and as you mentioned, I've only attacked one unit now on Christmas 1940. And so that's kind of a Christmas truce. You kind of got what you wanted. So what do you, yeah, go ahead.
Of course it's in the place that doesn't really celebrate Christmas, but you know what? We count it still.
Yeah, dude. You gotta embrace some Western ideals eventually. And so what are your overall thoughts about that front over the past year?
I'm terrified and I'm scared.
Why?
Because you are slaughtering civilians and just rapidly approaching my new borders.
Civilians. These are all combatants I'm fighting. And what do you mean rapidly approaching? If you note, over the past couple months, there's actually been zero movement at all on the front.
Well, you still have so much troops down here. Very powerful troops at that. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 armies down here. 5. I don't know. Not as bad as like earlier in the year, but there's still a lot more armies and stuff down here.
This front definitely started surprising me in the middle. Overall, like, I was surprised by when you started stepping off of cities to the south, because those cities, and as I mentioned to you, the rail line was my objective the entire time. That's what I aimed to push and take, and I did manage to take it. And I know you said that to you it was worth it to make for your goals. I doubt you could talk more about that yet. I feel like it's too recent.
Well, I actually probably can, because now it doesn't really mean anything. So I thought I was being smart because I noticed all of those troops had insanely low morale and readiness. So I thought it would have just been a waste of a corps or army to just let them die when I can just fall back and let them regroup.
And now you have done that, and the result is a pretty fortified line. You kind of ran away and took some losses running away in some instances, but you're behind a pretty fortified line back there with anti-air, artillery, fortifications, some set up by like an engineer, and you theoretically might have more supply and morale back there at this point.
Yeah. I gotta ask though, does the artillery surprise you, or did you expect that?
Once I saw the anti-air, I kind of expected it, because when I saw the anti-air, I said in my episode, and I guess you'll see it one day, I said, he got that from me. He got that from my playthrough, I'm pretty sure. And then I brought it up to you and you said, I learned that from you. And I was like, yep, there's artillery coming too. I just know it. I just know it. And then the North got pretty interesting there for a little bit for exactly like 1 month, maybe 2, you launched a massive all-out offensive going after just that region up north around Peking, where I had just moved some armies off of that mountain hill, like those hills that were in between us. You immediately rushed over the hills, and we got into a rather large fight because of it, with, I'd say, minor to... I don't really know how to rate my own losses there, but I do know that I got to kill a corps or 2 of yours involved in the assault.
Yeah, I didn't really meet my objectives except for one of them.
Are you able to talk about what those objectives were?
I can talk about my main objective. I can't talk about the other one. The main objective was just to cut your rail line so you couldn't move north.
Okay, so yeah, I thought you might be doing that, and I was really interested on how you planned to do that, because that rail line goes all the way to the coast. So you would have had to literally take up to Tientsin, which is a port next to Peking, and like you would have had to get around my entire front line there in order to actually pull that objective off.
Yeah, I was hoping to kind of pull off a blitzkrieg and try to slip through your lines, but it was just too risky.
I had figured, and I still figure, that there was actually probably 0 chance of you getting that far. I thought there might be a chance of you getting at least the first half of that rail line, which wouldn't have affected me in any way. And I actually tried my best to lure you into that, because I wanted to keep you there past the hills so that I could just keep getting easy kills on units that I figured would have taken forever to get a good hit on, because they were all fortified in the mountains before.
Yeah, halfway through, I kind of just decided that it wasn't worth it. I at least got my side objective out of the way, so now it's time to just pull back.
All right, cool. And so that takes care of that. There's a couple other things, I suppose. Your diplomacy has been continuing. I know I've seen a couple ticks of Ireland, and I believe Iraq. I haven't seen any more ticks of Iran. Have you stopped putting money into them?
Well, the couple chits that was in there was from France way, like, early
yeah, so they're just
games,
gone.
yeah.
They're just gone, those chits.
Yeah, well, I believe that's what put the speed, or the 5%. I was just very unlucky with those chances. But then, yeah, the rest of the chits are gone.
Yeah, so definitely see you sticking with Iraq and Ireland, which is really interesting. Iraq still really interests me as one that you're going for, but we've already talked about that last summit. And for my chits, the only country you've seen me put any chits into probably is going to be the DEI. And they've now joined the war actively. Very ahistorical. What are your thoughts on that?
They're going to DEI. They're going to die.
So funny. Lamau, Rafflecopter.
Sus as fuck.
So that kind of changes things, because, you know, historically, Japan invades it. So and historically some DEI ships actually escape and then end up serving with the Royal Navy a little bit. That's something that you could have had happen, and now like that won't happen. Like there won't be a invasion of the DEI. The counter invasion, of course, may still happen with America landing in the DEI.
Yeah, now I'm going to be the one committing war crimes.
Well, the DEI was still invaded by America in real life. It was just a counter invasion, like later in the war. It wasn't as grandiose though, because it didn't need to be, because they just, dropped the sun.
Like I'm going to do to you. Hypothetically, anyway.
So is there anything else about 1940 that you would like to bring up that interested you?
Well, I gotta say, the absence of you fighting in Africa at all has been kind of interesting.
Yeah, how so?
Well, I either expect you to go all in on Africa or just be defensive, and so far, I haven't even found that much defensive stuff. Besides, like a little bit in Libya. Now, I do know from an event at the last month or the turn before that, to where you sent Rommel down here.
Yeah, Rommel is on the field now.
Time for him to die.
That and the 1940 something. I'm sure you're interested in something else that I forgot to mention that was also absent this past year so far. I know you were expecting probably like a pretty immediate. I'm sure you don't actually know how long it takes to set these things up yet anyway, but like a pretty immediate Operation Sea Lion, and you're still looking for it.
Yeah. Hypothetically.
I know I've seen your ships just scanning. I keep seeing like these half-dead light cruisers go past and just thinking, oh my god. I'm just like, keep one there, I fucking dare you, every time I see it. Do you feel like it's maybe like, is this kind of like the time span you expected? Do you think that your lack of going to Malta has had any effect on this? Like, what's your perception of that front?
Well, I've expected you to kind of do it a lot earlier, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. At least not until Barbarossa kicks off. Now, until Barbarossa, there's still going to be some tensions with you potentially pulling off Sea Lion still.
And I noticed you did a bombing run at one point where you tried to strat bomb Paris. That went really terribly for your bombers, and then you immediately stopped trying. And I don't even remember, like, did you get caught by fighters or something? I just remember, like, you did a strat bombing, you lost 3 off the strat bombers, and then you just completely stopped.
Well, I accomplished my goals.
And what were the goals there, exactly?
Finding potential invasion forces, aka the paratroopers.
Yeah, I remember when you flew directly over the paratroopers, and I saw that line that you came from. I was like, that's how he saw them. Isn't that so funny? I made sure to make a point of that I put them somewhere, and I didn't even really think about that, because I wasn't really sure if you just start bombing, and if you did, I didn't really fully expect it to be Paris, but I guess that makes sense. I just thought it was so funny that they just happened to be exactly where you would fly over them.
I guess I made a good call right there.
Yeah, that was completely unintentional, but I found it so funny that you found that out the way that you found it out. So that was really entertaining. So is that it? Is there anything else for 1940 that's caught your attention?
I think that's about it.
So then going into 1941, this is of course the year that World War II really transcends. And this is the year where historically the Soviet Union joins the war. Their mobilization is only like 36% roughly right now. It's going to start going up in these upcoming turns due to certain reasons. But also America, they're still not even mobilized enough to give Lend-Lease, but historically they would come in at the end of the year. So what are your thoughts on this upcoming year?
it's going to be fun for me in some places and not fun in other places. Cough, cough, China.
So much focus on China. That's going to be it for this summit, though. So for now, thank you guys very much for watching.
And we'll see you guys next time, hopefully in Paris.
In Paris.